Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Muslim Philanthropy Podcast. My name is Muhi Khwaja, and I'm the co-founder of the American Muslim Community Foundation. Today on the show, we have with us Khalid Elgwaily. He's chiming in from Canada up north. So welcome to the show, Khalid.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll get into all of the reasons why you have a donor advised fund at the American Muslim Community Foundation. But before we get to that, obviously, just want to get to know you.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit more about your background, where you grew up, and what you do.
Sure. My background is Canadian, Egyptian Canadian. I was born in Edmonton, Ontario. Sorry, Edmonton, Alberta, which is quite a ways from here, and moved to Ontario about 25, 30 years ago. Grew up mostly in London, Ontario, and have spent some time in the United States and in Toronto and in a place close to Ottawa, which is where I'm based right now. Um, my background professionally, I've worked in finance and I've worked in manufacturing and construction, and I've been interested in Islamic finance and trying to bridge the gap between um, conventional finance and real estate at this point in time. So that's kind of where I'm at professionally. Um, and yeah, I guess that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Great. I appreciate you sharing. Tell us a little bit more about growing up in Edmonton and um, what it was like for Egyptian Muslim Canadian.
Edmonton is cold. And when
Yeah, I
it's
bet.
right, the days are very short and you get used to minus 40 degree weather. That's Celsius. I don't know what that translates to in Fahrenheit, but it's very, very cold. But I mean, I grew up in the glory days of Edmonton, the Edmonton Oilers. So when Wayne Gretzky was playing out there, and it was, I mean, I was there as long as the hockey was good. I like to put it. So when Edmonton was winning, I was fortunate enough to be there. And then in the early 90s, after Mark Messier left, that's when we kind of left and went to Ontario, moved to Ontario. So that's kind of
So,
that was my experience in Alberta was very good. Uh, we called
mhm.
Edmonton the city of champions when we were growing up.
Your luck didn't transfer over to the Maple Leafs, huh?
No, not at all. I'm not a Leafs fan. Let's just put it that way.
Fair.
Um,
And growing up and being raised in Detroit, I can't say I'm a Leafs fan either. So good. And then in regards to just like where you went to school, and then how did you get into finance as a career?
sure. I started off. I went to University of Western Ontario, and I started off in a program. It was a kinesiology sciences program. So it's kind of like I tell people I was studying to be a gym teacher. But we did a lot of science, scientific courses, of course. So you're doing anatomy and physiology, and the story behind that is, you tell the parents, this is my way to medicine. I'm going to take all these courses and eventually get to med school. And I think most parents from our background, the expectation is, at least the family expectation is, you're going to get into engineering or medicine. That's what you're going to do. And so we started that way, but then second year university, I started a business with my brother and some classmates. And then after my third year, I left school and started a consulting company with my brother and some of our colleagues. And we ran that for a couple of years. And I eventually came back to school to finish my fourth year. And I got into the business school here. So it's Western's Business School is, I think it's the oldest business school in Canada. It's called the Richard Ivey School of Business. I did my MBA there, and I summered at an investment bank or a boutique investment bank in New York City, and then eventually went back there and worked with them until right before the financial crisis. So 2008, summer 2008, I kind of realized things were looking bad. And in the back of my mind, I thought, things in Toronto usually lag whatever's happening in New York. So if things are starting to look bad in New York, if I got back to Toronto, I could probably find something stable and just stay there. And that's essentially what happened. So I kind of left around June, July 2008, And I started working for a pension fund in November. And I was interviewing when the stock market was down like 1,000 points. I remember that. So it was kind of an interesting experience. The next 4 years I spent working for a pension fund in Toronto on the buy side. So um, that was my experience working in finance up till say 2011, and then I kind of parted ways with the pension fund and started working on sort of Islamic finance related projects. And there was a one of my former colleagues at the pension fund who was a portfolio manager. He had started his own hedge fund, and we tried to do what we tried to do is we tried to start a Sharia compliant fund. And I worked with them for a couple of years, and then that just it didn't work out. And during that time, I was out in Qatar. I was talking to some people out there trying to raise money, and I talked to some people who actually had some background who were more academic backgrounds in Islamic finance, and said, you know, you should really get into if you struggle getting into doing something finance related, you really should be looking at something in industry. And while I was out there, I kind of realized that in this business, at least in the Muslim community, we kind of tend to look at stocks as, you know, we look at the market as a casino almost. And a lot of the interest really was in real estate, because people kind of like hard assets, right? And so that's kind of where I started to turn my attention to, was looking at how do you securitize an asset. I had some background working in the pension funds. I had some background working in debt products. I was not happy to be in debt at the time, which is part of the reason why I left. But I got exposure to debt products, and we look at Sukuk, which are the Islamic bond type products.
Mhm.
It look just like they look just like securitized products. Stuff that we were looking at in debt, they're almost exactly the same. There's some changes, of course, to make them Sharia compliant. But having had that exposure, you kind of look at the Sukuk products and saying, you can draw a lot of parallels, and they look very familiar. And so I started looking at those types of products and started looking for other people who were interested in doing something in the asset-backed space. So some sort of an asset-backed security that maybe you look at securitizing a building or something like that. That was kind of my interest. And I just kind of tried to find people who had similar interests. At the same time, I had to work. So I started building. I worked with a company that manufactures building products, so roof trusses, floor systems, wall systems. And I've been in that space for 10 years now, or almost 10 years. This is my 10th year. In the last few years, I've been managing one of the businesses for this company. So I manage a company or a manufacturing facility that builds roof systems and floor systems, and we can get wall systems as well. So that's what I've been doing a lot last little while. So I guess my interest at this point is trying to connect the interest in Islamic finance and the understanding of how securitized products work with real estate construction, because now I have had an opportunity to look at, let's say, how a building is put together, a wood frame building is constructed, and you probably want to see how you can maybe make an apartment building and securitize that and sell it off to some Muslim investors. I think that'd be interesting to me. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely. I've, seen some families manage different types of REITs and, real estate investment trusts, and um, either doing flips on a annual basis and doing it more small scale,
Yeah,
where either they'll purchase a group of people will kind of create shares into investment property,
yeah,
and they'll work on um, whether it's demolition or just fixing the place up and then selling it right away, and whatever profit then goes back to those families. And usually it's like a 60-40 split, either with the management company and the investors or vice versa. But, we have also tried looking into, from AMCF's perspective, what are some other Sharia compliant investment opportunities, whether they're in the real estate process. And if you're buying cash, then you don't need to go get a conventional loan and other things like that. So that's definitely a interesting intersection, and something that can continue to provide some people with the opportunity to grow their investments in a Sharia compliant way, for sure.
Mhm.
So let's chat a little bit more about like kind of your interest in philanthropy and some projects that you like to support and kind of what draws you to those projects. So if you can highlight, any of your favorite charities or what kind of pulls you towards those causes.
Sure. Um, my interest in philanthropy, it really in the back of my mind, the reason why I'm interested specifically in AMCF is because of the ability to put money away and put it to work, and for that to continue to work for a very, very long time. So, having the background in finance, I understand the power of compounding, let's say. So if I put money away, compounding at, let's say, 4% a year for a very, very long time,
Sure.
it
Yeah.
turns into a lot of money. And the
Mhm.
ability for you to do stuff with that becomes, your ability to become impactful is significant over a long period of time. And so that's kind of what really draws me to AMCF. Um, the things that I like to, um, well, yeah, I'll tell you what I like to invest in or where I like to put my money, and then I can kind of connect the two ideas here. Where I like putting my money is in things that are scalable and things that have some impact and really can go anywhere. So one of my favorites right now is the World Food Program, because when I look at it, I can I can donate from an app on my phone, and I know that, let's say, $1.10 Canadian will get me a meal. So I will buy a meal. So I know if I give out $3.30 a day, I'm feeding somebody 3 meals a day, right? And it's very scalable now. So I don't have to start with a lot of money. I can just give whatever I'm able to, and I know what the impact of that is. But on the other side is also how much money I put away and put into a fund, and allow to compound and give at the same time. So if I know that I don't want my capital to disappear. I want it to grow over time. And let's assume that it's invested and returning at, let's say, 8% a year. 4% of that goes back to the pool to be reinvested, and 4% of the return goes to paying fees because you have to be able to support the foundation and to giving. I don't have to have a huge base to start to give money away to be able to provide or to support this cause. And if it compounds over a long, long period of time, then I can give more and more and more over that period of time. So that's why I kind of like that one, because that's why I like the world. Well, it's one of the reasons why I like the World Food Program, because it's very easy to scale. And if I connect that with what you're doing at AMCF, I can kind of put the money away, and even if I'm giving whatever it is, whatever the minimum is, I can give, and I can continue to grow. And I think one of the things I once heard one of the people out here in this community say, I'd rather just give money now because I know what the impact is going to be. Um, and so one of the things one of the reasons why I don't think that way is because one of the best examples I think in our tradition is Othman ibn Affan. And everyone looks at these other communities and they got these big, they got these big
Mhm.
funds. But you think Othman ibn Affan, I mean, his waqf has been around for about 1400 years. Now he probably wasn't thinking that he'd be, he would be supporting people 1400 years after his death, but he is. And if you think about what you have, if you're able to compound, I don't really think that he was thinking that his money would be compounding for that period. But if you're able to compound for that for 100 years or 200 years, or let's say 1,000 years, think about how much money it's going to be from, if you put away, let's call it $10,000, you put that away right now, what's that going to be hundreds of years from now? And how much giving are you going to be able to do? And you'll be able, if you do that, then your ability to be impactful in the future is going to be far more than it is right now. And
Right.
your ability, right? So that's what kind of draws me to it. That's why I'm interested in the fund. So I
Great.
need you to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. That has me thinking of, long-term sustainability and generational transfer of power and knowledge and institution tracking. So yeah, I mean, there are nonprofits that have been around for, 125 almost years longer than that in the United States. American Red Cross being one of them, and several others that started around that time. And then as far as Muslim institutions go, there are definitely mosques that started close to 100 years ago, I'd say, even in like Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and other communities in Michigan. So, our organizations do have that institutional and long-term depth. But even from a professional standpoint, finding the people with the skill sets and the interest and ability to lead these institutions as well is very interesting from that standpoint. Um, do you serve on any nonprofit organization boards or volunteer with any in your local community?
Not now. I think the last one that I was on was there was a finance committee for the local mosque in London, Ontario.
Okay.
And I was serving on that during, say, the height of the pandemic.
Okay.
So I think since then I just haven't been as involved because part of that is because I'm kind of living about 5-6 hours away, so I was always kind of calling in, and then also some of that's because there's always a turnaround in people and the priorities sort of change, and maybe there are some certain things of interest to me that we were working on that kind of changed as well. So you get other people coming in with different ideas, and then and so maybe they want to run things a certain way, and then your involvement kind of gets curtailed a little bit. So I mean, yeah, I have been involved when it makes when I've been able to, and I think most recently, not really most recent, but that would give you a sense of, maybe the last year or so I haven't been doing much, but
Mm-hmm.
I have always been interested in being involved. Yeah, and certainly the mosque has been a place where I've been putting in some time
Sure.
when I can. Yeah,
And then in regards to other organizations, so you shared about World Food Program. Are there
yeah.
others that kind of pique your interest in terms of, maybe it's basic needs or education or international relief type of organizations?
The ones that have always been, let's say, handy, the ones that have been closest to have been UNICEF. I've had for a long time. That's another, the local mosque, of course, you support your local mosques. Um, I've had Children International for quite a while as well. So I've had more than one child that I've sponsored through that. But that Islamic Relief is another one where I wouldn't say I'm as consistent with that one. It's sort of opportunity. It's when something arises and it makes sense, I've kind of gone through them. So that gives you an idea of where I've would have supported. Um, but yeah, it's a sort of community first, I guess, and then I kind of got grown over the years to kind of support a little bit some of the other ones. But I really like the international ones. Um, UNICEF and World Food Program have been two of the ones I really like.
Yeah,
And that's, yeah,
definitely can see the longevity and impact of those organizations as well.
right.
Um, And then even with Islamic Relief, at least in the US, over 25 years and probably similar in Canada.
Yeah.
And just great institution working on behalf of the community and so many projects across the world, from education to healthcare to um, so many different programs to uplift communities out of poverty. Um, so definitely all great things that you're supporting. Um, with now respect to the donor advised fund, like you talked a lot about the compounding and putting away money and having it work for you. Um, I remember receiving your email and like, somebody in Canada wanting to work with our organization. I was, a bit not shocked or surprised, but like kind of like, wow, this is beyond the scope that like I had even thought of
Mhm.
when starting this organization, right? Because we're very US focused, but my assumption is that you didn't find anything similar in Canada, but wanted to still support causes. And since you had spent time in the US, maybe support even some US based charities as well. So walk us through a little bit of like the process of doing your own research and then kind of approaching AMCF.
Sure. We were actually trying to do something similar here in London, Ontario. And so I've worked with a number of folks here who were kind of doing the initial research and kind of trying to figure out how to do our own sort of community foundation here in London. And that's one of the things that we were working on when I was on the finance committee at the mosque. But things kind of, they take their time. It's not easy to get something like this off the ground. And I came across AMCF while we were doing our research. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, you know, this is something that I want to do because I don't know how long I'm going to be around. So I can continue to help and work with the folks over here to try and get it off the ground. And it could take a while. But I could also, this is another opportunity in the US. I can also put my money to work there now. I don't have to wait. The only difference is, there's some tax implications, but it's not really a big deal if you think of it. It's not a big deal. The question is, what do you want to achieve? And if paying a little bit of taxes is going to stop you from doing what you want to achieve, well, then it's not that important to you. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Taxes aren't a big deal. And I can still support a lot of the causes that I mentioned through AMCF. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me. It just makes sense. It's the right vehicle for me. Hopefully it will have the longevity and it'll help me achieve what I'm looking to achieve. And I still can support the people over here as well, inshallah.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that's very forward thinking of you and the organization that wanted to kind of start this. It definitely takes a lot of infrastructure, takes a lot of support, takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But I'm grateful that you reached out when you did and connected with us. Um, in in your kind of setting up the donor advised fund, are you hoping to support mainly US based charities? Or are you hoping to still do some grants internationally to charities as well, either in Canada or some others that are registered?
Well, I mean, going back to some of the names that I mentioned, so if you talk about the World Food Program or UNICEF or Islamic Relief, I mean, it doesn't matter whether I do them here in Canada or I do them in the US, I'm still supporting the same causes, right? So, um, you know, it's it, I am achieving my goal, right? If there are certain institutions in the US that I decide I want to support, sure, I could do that through AMCF. That's not a problem, or I could do it directly. I mean, but just for me again, it's the vehicle that you created. It's the ability for that to go on for a long period of time and still support the causes that I care about. I mean, it works. So that's why that's why it's a good fit for me, at least. I think it's a great fit.
Mhm. Um, what are some of your goals with your philanthropy? Like, of course, if it's setting up annual distributions and kind of letting that continue to grow over the next 30, 40 years, inshallah, and then naming either beneficiaries of support or ongoing support. I think that's one of the good use cases of a donor advised fund is that succession planning and ability to pair it with a will or estate plan, so that when we do pass, your charitable giving can be given through your donor advised fund.
Mhm.
Um, share a little bit more on the goals that you have with your DAF and kind of what you see it doing later.
Sure. So I guess it kind of depends on how big it gets, right? So how much I'm able to contribute. So if it gets to a certain point and the fund can kind of be standalone uh, at AMCF, well, then there's a little bit more that I could do to sort of direct where that money goes. If it doesn't get as big as if it doesn't get that big, it still gets, my understanding is it gets rolled into the sort of general fund at AMCF, and really. I think because the foundation's values sort of align with my own, I'm not so picky as to where the money is going to go. The only thing that I care about at that point is that continues to be reinvested, and some of that money goes to work, so like in the community, right? So if that continues to happen, and AMCF um, goes on for a very long time doing this work, then essentially I'm achieving what I want to achieve. So I'm not too picky.
That's great. I need to find like hundreds of other people that think exactly like you.
I think you'll find them up here, inshallah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It's
inshallah.
not hard to find us, I think.
For
Like
sure.
the
And, I think with AMCF, like, we set up a rapid response fund for the wildfires that happened in Maui, for instance. So we were able to send $55,000 to different charities in Hawaii,
Mhm,
responding to that. We were able to do a collaborative fund for Palestine where we've already sent over $100,000 to humanitarian organizations helping in Palestine, and then also advocacy organizations that are, power building movements to connect and other institutions, and also call for a ceasefire from our leaders in government. So a lot of good things happening from the organizational standpoint. But I think a lot of families also utilize their donor advised fund to send money to charities that they care about primarily. And that's probably 90 to 95% of the families we work with are sending distributions in Ramadan at the end of the year, primarily to causes that they know they want to support. And then maybe 5 to 10% of the families are more in your category where they have the funds in, they are investing it, and occasionally they'll say, I want to support this, but I'm really holding it long term,
mhm,
and want AMCF's guidance on where these funds could go, what are important causes that are upcoming or on the corner that about that align with things that I've supported in the past. So we're thankful to both types of families that work with us, and now we're over 170 families
mhm.
that work with AMCF, and they've distributed over $11 million to more than 800 charities.
Nice.
So it's definitely being part of that trajectory, and that story is hopefully something that the donor advised fund families also appreciate and want to be part of that collective power as well.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's great to be a part of a community like this. And I'm kind of looking forward to see how much this is going to grow, because I think you might be underestimating the number of people who are interested. It's just that people have to grasp the power of what can be done in the foundation, right? And once I think people get
Yeah,
a good feel for what can be done, they'll kind of pile in, I think.
for sure. And that's our mandate, is like scaling this effort, really turning over every stone that we can to talk to people, to inform them about what we do, what donor advised funds are, the benefits of it all. And we're also growing the number of endowments that we have. So I think we have 17 set up as well, where nonprofit organizations are looking to invest their principal assets and allow that to continue to grow and provide their organization with additional sustainability.
Mhm.
And between the donor advised funds and the endowments, we have about $8.5 million of assets under management. So, slowly but surely growing. 2023 was a year of growth for us, and looking forward to build on that momentum in 2024 as well.
Okay. Well,
Good.
uh, sorry, I got a quick interruption here.
No worries. So, any last comments that you want to share with us in terms of, what you believe in AMCF and your philanthropy and your vision of kind of the difference that you want to see?
Well, I would say at first I'd say I thank you for the work that you're doing because it's really important. And it takes a lot of we'll say blood, sweat, and tears, let's say, to get to where you are at. So congratulations on the work that you've already done. And inshallah, I look forward to seeing you, continue for many, many years to come. It's a very important service that you're providing. It's really important work that's being done. And for people like me who can see the value, it's definitely a place where we like somewhere where I would want to be putting my money. And hopefully it will last for a very, very long time. So the more successful AMCF is, the happier I will be. If there's anything that I can do myself to kind of help, I gladly, contribute whatever I can. And if that means just kind of telling people around me in my circle up here in Canada that, there's this opportunity south of the border, then for sure I'd be happy to do so. So it's a great cause, and I'm a big fan. So, congratulations on the work that you've done. Inshallah, you'll continue to do even better, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, thank you so much, Khalid. I appreciate getting a chance to know you a little bit better and share with our listeners about what inspires you to have a donor advised fund and continue this work. And inshallah, we will be there to support the causes that you want to support and continue to grow in the process as well.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on. Thanks.